Hi, gang. Hello, hello. Let's get this party started on this Friday, the 8th of August. Man, oh man, what is happening to summer? What in the world is happening to summer? I'll tell you something apropos of nothing relevant to today's poll question, but I noticed something in the last 2 days, just in the Philly burbs. I noticed that the streets were jammed where a week ago they'd been empty. And I'm thinking to myself, it used to be August. August for those of us with kids in school, August was a huge vacation month. And I think those days are over. I know people who own property at the Jersey Shore, and they say to me that when you hit like August 1st, it just nosedives, and that people have already taken their vacation. I'm looking forward to going away in 2 weeks. But my point is, I think the school calendar has changed this, that schools go back sooner than they used to, and the old, start and end dates of summer are not what they used to be, which kind of bums me out. Kind of bums me out to know that the days are already getting shorter by like a minute a day, which stinks. TGIF, your Friday poll question at Smerconish.com asks this: border agents disguised as employers made arrests at an LA Home Depot in Operation Trojan Horse. Do you approve or disapprove of that? Do you approve or disapprove of that tactic? They actually jumped out of the back of a Penske rental truck, which is kind of ingenious or violative. We'll talk in a moment. Get lucky in no time at Parks Casino in Shippensburg, located right in central Pennsylvania, off exit 29, which is off Route 81, about 45 minutes from the state capitol in Harrisburg. Parks Casino is my casino of choice. Parks Casino is close to Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia, and the nearby Pennsylvania towns of Chambersburg, Carlisle, and Greencastle. Here we are on this Friday. Keep in mind that on Monday, as they always do, they'll be celebrating military veterans. Show your military veteran ID and get a free hot dog lunch with chips and a soda as a thank you from Parks in Shippensburg. Every Tuesday, it's the Parks Casino 50% golden discount. The summer comedy series continues on Friday the 15th, a week from tonight, with Chris Johnson from the Impractical Jokers comedy tour. What a great mingling opportunity. Go out and watch some live comedy. Have a couple of laughs among strangers. Maybe they won't be strangers by the end of the evening. Take my recommendation. Check out all they have to offer. It's smoke-free, 500 state-of-the-art slot machines, 48 live dealer electronic table games, a great daily happy hour. It's always 5 o'clock in Shippensburg, as I like to say. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday, 31,866 votes were cast. The 80th anniversary of Hiroshima was 2 days ago, and tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of Nagasaki. Garrett Graff was a great guest of mine on POTUS. Please listen to the book club podcast release of his oral history of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's terrific. He's got a great knack, the way that he puts together these recollections. He goes back and he combs through all the archival data. And I don't know how he does it. He has to have a hell of a method where he's able to synthesize all these different perspectives and interviews that have been done over time and give you in sort of a real-time TikTok what everybody was thinking. And he's done it on other events, but this is really, really great. Were the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki justified? 59.63% of our audience, 60%, said yes, which is really interesting. 22.15% said unsure, which is greater than the no votes, which were 18.22. Now, I told you I wanted to ask that question so as to compare it to a national survey, a scientific survey by Pew Research. Pew Research asked the same question. This is June 2 through 8. So very, very recent. 60% in our survey said it was justified. Only 35% in the national survey said that was the case. So our audience, and it's interesting because we've commented on this. I've commented on this. We tend to get more progressive responses to the poll question. And when you look at the internal Pew data, you see some metrics that emerge. Older people, Republican people, tend to be more believing that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were justified as compared to younger folks and Democrats and independents. So what does that say about our audience? Older and Republican? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that we had almost twice the number as Pew, who said justified. And interestingly, if you go back in time and you look at Gallup data in the immediate aftermath, 1945, of the dropping of the bomb, Fat Man and Little Boy, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 85% of Americans at the time said that it was justified. And then that number has sort of diminished as time has marched on. Approval remained between 53 and 59% between 1991 and 2005. And then more recently, as per the Pew data, the number diminishes as people's memories fade. So that's yesterday's poll result. Today, border agents disguised as employers made arrests at an LA Home Depot in Operation Trojan Horse. Do you approve or disapprove? I'm kind of combining the LA Times coverage of Operation Trojan Horse with Peggy Noonan's column in the Wall Street Journal talking about enforcement actions recently, and an update that I'll share with you in a moment. But if you missed it, from the LA Times, a man driving a Penske truck pulled up to day laborers at the Home Depot and told them he was looking for workers, recalled one day laborer. The workers gathered around just as more than half a dozen Border Patrol agents jumped out of the back. Many of the people scattered, but 16 were arrested in the operation. After weeks of relative quiet, the immigration raid on a Home Depot in Westlake early on Wednesday morning revived fears of widespread sweeps in Los Angeles. U.S. Border Patrol Sector Chief Greg Bovino warned, "We're not leaving." And by the way, in today's LA Times, there's another story, an updated story, or a story updated that's been ongoing. The Trump administration yesterday petitioned the Supreme Court to free up its mass deportation efforts across Southern California, seeking to lift a ban on roving patrols implemented after a lower court found such tactics violated the Fourth Amendment. So those restrictions were initially handed down in a July 11 order. It barred masked and heavily armed agents from snatching people off the streets in LA and cities in 7 other counties without first establishing reasonable suspicion that they're in the U.S. illegally. And then this story says the move comes barely 24 hours after heavily armed patrol agents snared workers outside a Westlake Home Depot. If the Supreme Court takes up the case, many now think similar aggressive and seemingly indiscriminate enforcement actions could once again become the norm. So it's worthy to take a look at the comments on the LA Times story, most of which that I saw are disapproving of this enforcement tactic. The way in which the LA Times used the Penske truck and kind of hid their objectives. Let me just see if I have one or two of those handy in front of me. I may or may not. And then you juxtapose that with Peggy Noonan's column, which says that this is cruel. She's not talking about Home Depot, although she probably would, but the enforcement actions in workplaces. And Peggy Noonan says that we shouldn't be doing that because work is a way to show pride in your country, and people lambasted her. From the LA Times, use of a Penske truck and straw hat to lure day laborers demonstrates an effort to identify persons for arrest that want labor, not specific persons with undocumented immigrant status, much less people with other forms of criminal history. It's a classic generalized suspicion that violates the Fourth Amendment, says one person. Another, undocumented immigrants are not freeloaders waiting for a government handout. They're working in fields and restaurants and construction and caregiving jobs most native-born Americans won't do. Oh, that's interesting, because that brings to mind a telephone caller from Colorado yesterday named Nathan. Did you hear that caller? Really, really interesting. Nathan called yesterday and said, actually, he was driving a propane truck, or so he told me. and it was very loud. There was an interruption, and I said, "I can't hear you." And he said, it's because I'm driving a GD propane truck. They can't hire Mexicans to drive the propane truck, so this is the only job I can get." And he told the story of how he was a contractor paying a fair wage and hiring only Americans, and that he couldn't compete with those competitors hiring day laborers for a much diminished wage. And he said that his wife had had a similar experience. I think he said that she was in the cleaning business. It was a really interesting call, like a 3-minute call. I let him go on for a while because I thought it was a perspective that we needed to hear, and it kind of leveled the playing field. Anyway, the LA Times story draws a lot of comments from people who say this is outrageous, that the feds would use Operation Trojan Horse. And then you go to Peggy Noonan, a conservative, a Ronald Reagan speechwriter, columnist in the Wall Street Journal, I think does terrific work. And she said, Americans feel that they've been overrun the past 5 years with 5 million or 10 million people flooding in illegally across the border because the Biden administration didn't mind it. They know their reasons. They live with the political consequences of their vast carelessness. Mr. Trump appears to have controlled that border and begun to get the bad guys out. Good. But even his greatest supporters won't be long reconciled to work raids, akin to Home Depot. We like and admire people who work because that's who we came from, and because we root for the underdog and have eyes and can see in this drama who the underdog is. And she goes on and makes a very impassioned plea and says, we shouldn't be doing this. Immigrants, legal and not, keep my town going. I know them. They work themselves hard. They're all about family. They touch my heart. And if you're reading this, they touch your heart too, and you're for them. Stop picking on them. Cease and desist. Get the bad guys, not the good guys. And then I look at the comments to Peggy, and the comments are largely hostile. Quote, she won't say the word, but Peggy's position clearly advocates amnesty, which the American people won't support. And it is wicked to remove a man or woman from an honest job. That might be one of Peggy's silliest utterances in her lengthy career. Somebody else. Peggy Noonan acknowledges that 5 to 10 million immigrants have entered the country illegally. Should those illegal immigrants be permitted to stay simply because they have jobs? No way. More than being a country of work, we are, first and foremost, a country of laws, and those who break the law have to deal with the consequences. I feel like I'm being repetitive. I think we need a path to citizenship, and now's the time to get it done. And by the way, maybe it's not full citizenship. Maybe it's a green card. Come into the system. Here's my solution. It's not unique to me. A lot of callers yesterday were headed in a similar direction. We give those who are here in the country illegally an opportunity to stand up and be recognized, become known, in return for which, if they've been here a while and haven't broken any additional laws, we give them a path to being able to stay within the system. Maybe it's not citizenship. Maybe it's a permanent green card without any voting rights. But something so they're incentivized to come clean. Not like the administration is saying now, which is essentially like, trust us, wink, wink, nod, nod, and you'll be able to come back later, 10 years down the road. I just think it's impractical that we're going to remove all those that are here illegally. Anyway, it's a great poll question. Please go vote on this Friday. Approve or disapprove of Operation Trojan Horse. I appreciate everybody who votes on the poll question at Smerconish.com, and even more so those who listen to my explanation on a day-to-day basis. If you're listening on the podcast and not watching, know that you can watch me, if you care to, on YouTube as I describe this every day at 8 a.m. or thereabouts Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and Saturdays we get together at 7:30 before my CNN program, which airs at 9 because I'm on a tightened time schedule then. Okay? Appreciate you all. Go vote at Smerconish.com. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and set yourself up for notifications.